Hello. When faced with the question of what is your learning manifesto, what is it that you are passionate about? My answer always comes back to project-based learning, as project-based learning is the key to success in the classroom. It can increase scores, it can increase student engagement, it can increase the use of technology, and it can absolutely work on both local, state, and national levels. In fact, it can work globally, depending on the project that you've had. But first, it's important to identify what is, in fact, project-based learning. As you can recognize through this description and understanding of what project-based learning is, you'll be able to understand why it's applicable and what power it may have as it relates to education. So let's get started. What is project-based learning? Project-based learning is a dynamic classroom approach in which students actively explore real-world problems and challenges and acquire a deeper knowledge of whatever the project is. It is learning that is contextual, creative, and shared. It is learning that requires those 20th century skills, which are collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, and communication to answer challenging questions and/or solve complex problems. It is a method of teaching which makes learning relevant to students and helps them to see a purpose for mastering state-required skills and content concepts rather. It is not just rote sit and get. It helps them to actually have hands-on learning. It is non-standardized learning and non-standardized assessment. In project-based learning, students are pulled through the curriculum by a meaningful question that drives them to explore an engaging real-world problem to solve or a challenge to design or create something that is tangible or useful in one way or the other. Before starting, students gain prior knowledge through inquiry and exploration on whatever the topic may be. In an effort to demonstrate what they learn, students create high-quality products and present their work to other people. So again, we're still faced with, again, what is project-based learning? A lot of people don't like it because there are so many misconceptions about what project-based learning is in today's education. So let's address those misconceptions. First of all, the misconceptions that exist are that they are not standards-based. Project-based learning assignments are not standards-based. And they believe that many people believe that they focus on soft skills such as critical thinking and collaboration, but that they actually ignore content. This is not true simply because everything that's related on this project is contents-based. It is based on the entire curriculum. You can address those objectives using using a project. Another misconception is that younger children are not ready for this rich content, that there's not enough instruction time to actually teach a project, and that that it's more of a priority to teach the basic literacy and math skills first over doing these projects. It's important to know that these projects can address basic literacy and math and get those students engaged in learning and understanding why is it that I need to know math and why is it that I need to know how to read. And that addresses the content through this actual hands-on relevant learning. Another misconception is that project-based learning is only for older students or for fluent English speakers or those who don't have learning disabilities. Project-based learning actually speaks to those students who do have learning disabilities. Those students who didn't have those social skills are able to work through social skills either through technology or the constant interaction and collaboration with groups. Those students who have learning disabilities have another capable way or another resource of expressing themselves in non-standard formats. So the pen and paper is no longer there. They can look at their reports, and their basis of their grades is not on their ability in one area specifically, but then allows them to have more voice and choice in how the representation of what's considered a possible grade. Younger students benefit from this as well as older students as well, too. Project-based learning is too hard to manage and or doesn't fit with my teaching style. Well, this one may be one of those misconceptions, in fact, that are true. If your teaching style is sit and get, then this project-based learning is not for you. If, however, you are more in line with recognizing that all students don't learn in the same way, and that having that level, providing students with the exploration, real world concepts, then you are then presented with a new method of getting to every single learner and creating differentiation. There we go. Another misconception is that project-based learning is the same as making a product, hands-on learning, or doing an activity, and that is absolutely not true. Projects are easy. Project-based learning is totally different, and projects can then lead to a full-on project-based learning, but they are smaller projects within the project of project-based learning itself. A project takes too much time as the final one, but this is not true. You can take it in small bites. You could take it in large doses, however you choose to do it. A project can be 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 semesters, but the project is what you make it. And using the KISS method, which is keep it simple and short, then you can absolutely follow a project that works for you in your classroom. Let's look at what the differences are between projects and project-based learning. So, as you can see from this graph, a project is very different. Some of the key points I want to point out here are the difference between a project is teacher directed and project-based learning is student directed. That's probably the key. We are looking at ultimately getting to student-centered learning versus teacher-centered learning. The teacher has already acquired most of their learning and their knowledge. It's now up to the students to develop these skills where they are self-sufficient in their thought process, self-sufficient in the learning process. You give them the tools they need to be successful in your classroom, and then let them use those tools appropriately. Again, you've got here where projects will lack real-world evidence, where you can directly identify certain things for the students to submit to you, because as you can see, products are submitted to the teacher, but they lack that real-world relevance. They are products that are presented to you in the classroom. You grade them, that sort of thing. But when you have a project-based learning assignment, then it is based on real-world experiences or problems. Some essential elements of project-based learning are easy. You come up with a driving question. That is an open-ended question where students explore or capture the task. After that, you have to come up with significant content. That significant content is based on, focus-based on standards-based skills and key concepts. So it's always surrounded about the actual content. It is nothing that is outside of the content or not relevant to your actual planning in the classroom. It incorporates these 21st century skills. And these 21st century skills, of course, are all of the things that you want your students to be able to do in the real world, which are critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, and communication. That second item there in the 21st century skills, problem solving, is something that a lot of the students that are walking into your classrooms today are not coming in there with, that problem solving and critical thinking. Giving them this opportunity to work together to create, to solve these problems is a huge tool in life today. You want to give them that skill for sure. Additionally, you've given them an opportunity to do some in-depth inquiry, which is rigorous, extended process of questioning using resources and developing responses. A true need to know where the students are able to recognize the need to gain knowledge, not just you as a teacher, but the students recognize their need to gain knowledge, understand concepts, and apply the skills in order to answer those driving questions that have been created and then create those project products. Voice and choice is a key aspect of this. In today's world, students need to be allowed to make some choices about those products that they are going to create and how these products will work and how they will use their time and developing time management skills. You will, as a teacher, go through and provide them with guidance. However, they are using their voice and choice in the classroom and on this project. Again, it is a release of the teacher. It is no longer teacher focused, but student focused on their ability to interact effectively with one another and create their own time management and create their own product. Project-based learning is a wonderful. Again, it gives them an opportunity to revise and reflect, where they get to provide each other peer-to-peer feedback and come up with additions and changes that can help develop their products and think about their learning. At the end of the entire product or learning assignment, so to speak, you will create a public audience for your students to present to. And these presentations will go to other people that are beyond just your class, where they come up and give a speech and talk about what they've created. But they also can speak to the entire school versus just their class. They could speak to a community group versus just their class. However you've determined who their public audience is to be, then these are the people that they are going to do the presentation to. So in this world where we are, one of the content requirements is to teach students how to listen and speak effectively. That not only happens with a group collaboration and peer-to-peer collaboration, but also how to provide themselves with public speaking, how to conduct themselves effectively in a public speaking situation. And effectively present their products to a group. Project-based learning has a substantial amount of benefits. In addition to it growing in popularity in the classroom, the benefits that it provides inside the classroom and outside the classroom are extensive. And again, it does work on a local, regional, state, and national level. And now, as I'm personally experiencing, the benefits are even global. So let's talk about those. One of the keys is that project-based learning has student involvement and student engagement. You can let the students see what's on the work plan, let them fill out what they need, what needs to be done, and allow the teams to determine who's going to be doing what. You're going to give them some background knowledge, and that background knowledge that you give them can be extended through internet research. So you are incorporating technology throughout this entire process. The continued research that they'll do will take place on the internet as well through various programs, and it will go throughout the duration of the project, um, and from testing, assessment to peer-to-peer assessment to peer-to-peer evaluation, um, and even again continued research. Teamwork and collaboration with their listening and speaking for skill development as they're working in a team to listen to what the other members are feeling and thinking, and incorporating that into their ultimate projects. Um, Evaluation and assessment using online resources and tools, and reflection and feedback using online resources and tools, and of course, involvement and inclusion using those online resources and tools, and direct interaction with one another. Additionally, it provides an opportunity or benefit of learning outside the classroom. Here's a quote. If all young people were given these opportunities to learn outside the classroom, we believe it would make a significant contribution to raising achievement in national curriculum subjects, in the 5 outcomes of every child matters, and in the expectations of sustainable schools. That quote comes directly from teachernet.gov in the UK for sustainable schools. Um, The curriculum in the UK is different than the curriculum in the US, it speaks to a lot more group collaboration, and it's more effective with the collaboration in the classroom and working outside of just the walls of the classroom. Doing a project-based learning assignment with your kids allows you to take this into the community or just outside of the 4 walls of your classroom. You can then take it into the 4 walls of your school community or into the 4 walls of your actual city's community. However you see it fit, but it goes beyond just the room. Learning outside of the classroom has additional benefits because it allows you to bring on site people, presenters, parents, and community to talk about the project and help with the student engagement. Additionally, you are giving students an opportunity to visit or tour off-site facilities within the community to again invoke their engagement and create an encouragement and insight, a willingness or the relevance, again the relevance of this project to their real world learning. You have community interaction with resources and people to build that continued knowledge even after the project. And then you have material and product development that takes place outside of the classroom that can continuously be seen, whether it be a garden, a mural, artwork, or bridges, whatever the students may be doing. Throughout the entire process, you are able to use technology, which will be continuously incorporated. The benefits of project-based learning are vast. And as we look through the next aspect of this presentation, we're going to talk about how you can take technology into the project-based learning on the journey through project-based learning. So let's have a look at this YouTube video, which identifies what it's like to use technology on a project-based learning assignment. After watching the video, it's clear that not only is project-based learning effective in improving the skills and the learning in the classroom, and the performance of students and the engagement of students, but also it's clear that by incorporating technology into project-based learning, that it can develop a student, the school, the state, the nation, and globally. So how do you start in incorporating technology into project-based learning? Well, you start with the end in mind. by identifying first a project title, content standards, your century, making sure that you are going to tap into all of the 21st century skills in this project, that you have found a way to facilitate in-depth inquiry, and that you develop a driving question that speaks to um, addressing not only the project but the needs of the students. Foster the students need to know. Make sure that you provide them with voice and choice. Give them an opportunity for revision and reflection. Make sure that you identify the public audience and what's going to happen after the public audience addresses the students. Get a chance to address the public audience and whether or not the public audience will be able to address those students. And then you're going to do an essentials check, which basically says that you've got all the keys to make sure that you've covered all of the bases of your project-based learning. As you come up with your assessments and your assessment types, of course, there are formative assessments versus summative assessments. You're going to come up with your online quizzes and tests, a method for the students to blog or vlog for journaling and learning, preliminary plans and outlines and prototypes that you'd like them to have, and of course, you can give them assessments on their practice presentations. You can also assess them versus on their notes and whether or not they're really understanding what has to go into this project. Give them their checklist, their notes and checklists to see if they're actually identifying what needs to happen, and concept maps. And of course, observational data. It doesn't always have to be something that's summative. It can just be you monitoring and seeing what's happening. These summative assessments, you want to make sure that they have given that if they're doing this oral presentation, that you give them a rubric that is key to identifying what's required in your classroom, for the final assessment. You're going to give them a multiple choice or short answer test. That's not always my favorite because I think that's a little easier, but it is a method. Again, essay test. That's good, where they can write out their experience, an essay that identifies what their experience was, which speaks to whether or not, for me, that speaks to whether or not this project was actually held the amount of validity that I felt they would have going into the project. But then it addresses whether or not they felt it had the same equal validity. Just give them a test to find out what they're thinking. Additionally, you can give them a product and performance evaluation, and again, you're going to ask them, provide them with a rubric that tells them what this score is based upon. Give them a peer evaluation. You can have their peers evaluate how their performance was, and that's separate and exclusive of the audience evaluation. And of course, a self-evaluation. You can take a grade on what they think they've done. Now, one of the things that people say to me about this is that how do you let a kid self-evaluate them? You'd find that most students are more critical of themselves, just as we are as human beings. People are more critical of self than others. Having someone to actually look at, did you put in all the effort that you possibly could? Did you adhere to the rules and the guidelines? Did you work effectively with the group? And if you are able to do that, and what do you think you did? How was your performance? That is a valid assessment. Of course, you can come up with your own ideas that too fit as a summative assessment. When coming up with a public audience, you have to ask some key questions about where will the student work live after the project is over. Is it going to be kept on the internet? Is it going to be housed on USB drives? Is it going to be something that is presented to a group of people? Where is it going to go? And then who is it going to benefit? And how will this project be remembered in future years? Also, you want to make sure that your audience, what is your audience going to be able to do with your students? Now, for younger students, you don't want your audience to quiz them or assess them in most cases. But for an older audience, then you want to make sure, and maybe your audience can ask questions about how they got to the ultimate goal. And you can either provide them with a list of questions to ask the students as they go around touring their various projects, or you can have them develop their own questions and then answer maybe a few check this box or 1 through 5 evaluations of your own that maybe you've developed based on the questions that they've designed. Anyway, project-based learning to me is the key to global learning. There are a number of project-based learning assignments that can be given that incorporate technology. And I think that if the classrooms take on take on these types of project-based learning throughout our nation, we would be definitely much better educators and create lifelong learners.